Mike Reiss has been kind enough to join us now on the AT&T Expert Hotline. I think he's here via Zoom. Michael, are you there?
I am here, Mike, Tony, Jim. Great to be with you.
Hi, Mike. Good for you for joining us.
Great to have you, Mike. Thank you. We appreciate it. So, how aggressive was aggressive?
Well, I think it's bigger than the 28.5. That's the first thing. I heard 30 and even 32 in terms of average annual per year. But to your guys' point, I don't know the guarantees. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know the guarantees. But the people that I've spoken with didn't give me any indication that this was like some phony offer or offers, depending on how long the deal would be, that would dress it up to make it look better than it actually was.
Okay. I'm sure it's a legit offer, but then there's a difference between legit and blowing a guy out of the water, and that usually comes with the guaranteed money. We all have to agree. So the guaranteed number is the key number, is it not?
I think that's very fair, Mike.
Okay, so that to me, and I think the Patriots have a history of having a lot of bells and whistles in their contracts, a lot of, I say bells and whistles, I don't know how else you would describe it, a lot of qualifications, a lot of, there are strings attached, or there historically have been in their contracts, per game roster bonuses, things of this nature. So I'm just curious, because to me, Mike, it feels the only way you're going to get a Brandon Aiyuk is if there is a no strings attached, massive guarantee offer. Like that to me is their only path to a guy like that.
So let me ask you this, Mike. You mentioned their history with contracts. What is the history that you're referencing? Is it from 2000 to 2023, or does that include this offseason?
Okay, so this offseason, does not include this offseason.
So don't you think that's important? I mean, we're talking about a totally different thing, right?
Well, I don't know.
So, Mike,
you tell me. So just to follow this, so the new does Michael Wenu not have any per game roster bonuses?
I think he's got like weight bonuses. I'll check on that, Mike. I don't have that off the top of my head, but I think you hit at, to me. So I haven't been listening to you guys, and I'm ready to fight if you want to fight. But listen, the thing for me that I get people texting me, tweets coming up in the notifications. I think the insinuation that bothers me is that you think, Mike, that this information is coming from the team. So you think that the team would tell me that and that I would go on SportsCenter and report that. And I have to be honest, Mike, I'm actually a little bit insulted by that, if that's true. I don't know if that's true because I haven't been listening, but
it's definitely how I feel. I mean, it's okay to have team sources.
And that's okay. You can feel that way. You can feel that way. But the fact that you think that I would go on SportsCenter on that platform and just say that based on something from the team, like that's why I wanted to call in. Mike, that you're creating a perception with listeners that that's the way this works. That's incredibly dangerous. Think about all the people involved in this. You have the agent, you have the player, you have 4 teams, but you are just going to narrow in that the team, hey, we're going to tell Mike this, he'll go out and say it. That's not the way this works. Like, that pisses me off because you've been in this position and you know that's not fair. That's not, and it's not accurate in this case.
Oh, okay. I mean, I used to do it. They would tell me stuff and I'd report it. I mean,
no, Mike, you would check it, Mike. If they told you something, you would go check with the other side because that's the right thing to do.
Sometimes. Sometimes I didn't and it burned me.
So, Mike, I was going to ask you this, and frankly, I sort of stopped myself. So I'm glad that you opened this up.
Ask it, Tony.
No, I was going to ask you this because I was going to say, when you report a story, do you try to get information validated on both sides? Because I know that and let me just say, but before you even answer, I oftentimes would get information from one side and I would say, according to a source, if it was a credible source. And then I got to a stage where my employer at that time said, listen, we're not going with one sources anymore. We want 2. So I was going to ask you, does ESPN have any sort of standard in that? And I didn't want to ask you outright which side did you get it from, but did you have to get it from multiple sides?
Absolutely, Tony. And in this case, if you're saying the team is being aggressive, you better have it from more than just the team. Like, you can't just take the team's word for that. That's what to me is like stunning that you would think that. It's actually sort of insulting. I still love you, Mike. But
I understand.
And your point about the guarantees is fair, I don't have that information. But when the initial information isn't coming from the team, like, and then you go, of course, I'm going to go to the team and say, this is what I have. What do you think? And they're not going to confirm or deny, but I'm not taking their information as the gospel.
So, I just don't mean it to be as insulting as it surely is, but I'm not changing my mind. I mean, I do know how it works. I mean, I've been there. There are reporters that have team sources. There are reporters that are sort of mobbed up with the players. There are reporters that are great with agents. And so you sort of know what information is coming from. It's how you can sort of get to the truth. That this reporter is reporting this, and he's really good with the players. Or this reporter is reporting that, and she's really good with the teams. And this one's good with this agent. And I know if so-and-so reports something, well, I know this guy's mobbed up with Drew Rosenhaus. So is this a Rosenhaus client? I mean, it's just, that's sort of how you, and I don't blame you for being upset, but it doesn't change the way I feel about it. And honestly, and let me just say, on this specific case, presenting the AAV but not the guarantee feels like that's doing the team a favor. I'm not saying that that's exactly what you're doing, but it's really, putting out there where their offer is good and ignoring where it probably isn't. And this is, So I mean, you're sitting there in front of the stadium. Your office used to be inside the stadium. You've covered the team longer than anyone. You're incredibly well sourced with the team, and it's a report that makes the team look good. I mean, I don't feel crazy for saying, oh, that's coming from the team, which doesn't make you a bad person. But, you got to get it from somewhere.
Well, I'm not going to tell you how to feel, Mike, but I'm actually not sure how it makes them look good. I mean, you offer that much money and the player essentially says, I don't want to come. How does that make them look good? I'm telling you, in my opinion, I don't think the team wants that stuff out there. And I actually think this issue, if I'm being honest, highlights a bigger issue that you have with the team over the years with their spending.
Oh, it's definitely a core issue of mine because I feel they deserve to be called out on it.
Yeah, and Mike, Mike Reiss. Let me just, because you said you weren't listening, just so you know, he did say up front that this was not any sort of commentary on you. Okay,
no, I know.
So
I love you guys.
Look, the fact is, Mike, we've all been there. Okay, we've all covered teams, and we get used. Sometimes we get used. It's not 100%, and I'm not even saying that's happening here. But the fact that it has happened in other cases means that it can happen. Okay, so that's really all that means. But let me ask you this. Okay, when you look at the Mike, whose story was it? Chad Graff in The Athletic that listed the receivers: DeAndre Hopkins,
yes.
Calvin Ridley.
It was a tweet.
Okay, so when we look at their history at receiver in the last, call it 2 years, did it feel like they blew DeAndre Hopkins out of the water?
They absolutely did not. That was one, and I would agree with Mike in that case. That was one where it wasn't even close.
Okay. Did it feel, and let me just go through the sequence. Did it feel like they blew Calvin Ridley out of the water?
That one I think is more close to, we're going to go above and beyond.
Did Tennessee give him more?
I don't know, Tony. Did they give him more? I don't remember.
Okay.
I think the Patriots were giving him more, right?
Okay, so again, I suppose an AAV maybe, but there's no way to know on the guaranteed part of it, and I submit that we won't know on the guaranteed part of it. Our general premise is this. They're in no spot to be at the same level financially as another team right now and think they're going to get the player. That's the point. That even if they offer the same amount of money as someone else, they're not going to get it because they're going to have to outbid people by a significant margin to get the player. Do you agree?
100%, and I think they would agree. And you could call it the suck tax. Like when your team is not very good, you have to pay more to get a player to come here.
So I just Googled quickly. Ridley signed for 23 in Tennessee, and according to reports, the Patriots made a very competitive offer to Ridley, roughly 22 per year. So again, that's just on average value, which is because obviously there's some wriggle room there. The money that matters is the guaranteed, the money in the first 3 years. Okay, all this minutia, Mike, that and I used to know really well, but guaranteed for injury, guaranteed for performance, per game roster bonuses, that sort of thing. That's the nitty gritty of it, and that's what determines what the best offers are, not necessarily the AAV.
And based on history, there's two things here to me that are important. You guys are talking about like Hopkins. That was a different time, and That was Belichick, and I'm not pinning anything on Bill.
Same ownership, though, Mike.
Same ownership, but Bill was making the decisions.
He was spending the money?
Bill was deciding what they would offer DeAndre Hopkins.
But not what the team would spend, Mike.
I'm just talking about Hopkins. He was deciding in that case.
Fine.
So to me, that's a line like I think is important to mention. And then the other point on this, we were talking about. I don't remember the other point, but I mean, I think so. The separate regime, and what was the other point you made, Tony?
Oh God, I don't even remember now.
About Hopkins and Ridley.
Oh, Hopkins and Ridley. My recollection was Ridley did get more money.
I know what I wanted to say. I understand, based on the history, why Mike and Tony, why you feel that way about the spending. I think the one thing, and maybe you have mentioned it, there are times where players just don't want to come here. And usually it's about the money. I think Elliot Wolf even said, usually it's about the money. But there are a few cases where it's not. And I think that's just important to mention. Like, some players just don't want to, if they're from a different area, or it's, like, to our point, like the Patriots have to offer that much more. And sometimes that's still not enough.
So the money thing, Mike, you're right. It's I don't know what you want to say, an obsession with me, but I think, ownership deserves to be brought into these conversations when we critique teams. And there's only a couple things we can critique owners on. And they're basically who they hire and what they spend. I mean, that's roughly it. There's not much else after that. And so I think the team deserves the scrutiny. I think the numbers, basically the facts, have borne me out over the years. They're the lowest spending team in the league over the last 7 years, the last 10 years. You don't have to the cap is incredibly lucid, malleable.
Yep.
And you can spend more if you want to spend more, and the Patriots aren't one of those teams, and those are just the facts. And so it does bother me when they catch a lot of breaks locally when it just doesn't add up to what's happened. And I think they deserve that scrutiny.
And I think it's fair, Mike. I'm not here to defend the team. I think the point that I would make to you, are you unhappy with their spending this year?
I am unhappy with the Aiyuk situation. Did you want the guy or not? Because you're going to have to blow him out of the water to get him, and I don't think they did.
So you must know that he would have come here no matter what.
Oh, there's a number. Yeah. I mean, who knows, Mike, but I believe there was a number. There usually is. I mean, and that's the only way you're going to get a guy here right now is to blow him out of the water with that kind of offer. And I don't think they did. But
if you were running the Patriots, you would have paid him Justin Jefferson, $35 million a year. Who cares, right? It's not your money. That's what you would have done?
Well, 35, no, but I would have made him the second guy. If they wanted him, so look, that's a different conversation. They clearly wanted him.
Mike, they were right up. I mean, I get your point. You're going to come back to the guarantees.
Right.
But in terms of average annual salary, from what I understand, they were right up there right behind Jefferson and the A.J. Brown, 32 over a 4-year deal. But I understand. We can keep going around and around. I think the important point to me is I just want people that are listening, because you guys have the best show, everyone's listening, to understand the way this works, that I would never go on SportsCenter and just pass along that on that platform. It's just not the way I do it.
Okay. Respect that, Mike.
Totally.
Now that we have you, can I ask you something?
Absolutely.
Has Drake May disappointed you?
So that I would say hasn't been as decisive as I was wondering if it might be. Like the CJ Stroud in Houston last year. I know everyone's comparing, rookie quarterbacks to him. I was wondering if he would do something like that, and he hasn't. But it hasn't changed my opinion, Mike, of like where it's ultimately going to lead. I think he's going to be good. Okay,
but you thought he would be more than he is right now, and obviously it's just 2 weeks, but that's all we got.
I thought it'd be more of a competition between him and Jacoby.
Should there have been more of a competition between him and Jacoby? Should the coaches have done more to make it a competition?
So I think if Drake had shown a little more like early, Mike, last week when the pads came on, then it probably would have happened. But I think they just sort of let what they saw on the field dictate, where that would go.
Can I ask a question before we let him go?
Please.
Absolutely.
You're going to chuckle, Mike, but I'm like, how bad's it going to be, Mike? Is it? Are we looking at another top 5 pick? Is that what it is?
I think that's probably fair, Tony. I mean, yeah, I think it's going to take another offseason to stock the roster and get them where they need to go. I mean, I keep coming back. I know Mike loves Aiyuk, and I'm sure he would have been great. I mean, I'm just looking at the offensive line, and I'm just wondering how they're going to protect. I mean, Vidarian Lowe has been the left tackle for 6 of the practices, and there's more holes. And to be honest, guys, like for me, having seen it at the highest level with Tom, and like I have to remind myself like not to always try to measure it up to that.
I like how everybody uses Vidarian Lowe as the standard of like how bad the offensive line is. Well, look, the situation is you got Vidarian Lowe playing left tackle. Like that pretty much says it all.
All right, Mike. What's going to happen with Judon? What should happen with Judon?
So I think what should happen, Mike, is they should sweeten his contract this year. I personally think like that's warranted, but not extended. I don't know how many teams would extend a soon-to-be 32-year-old, coming off an injury that limited him to 4 games last year. But I think it's like the old Rob Gronkowski sort of solution when the contract was so long, Mike, that, he wanted they would sweeten like each year to sort of get him back up to the appropriate level. And I think so raise his base salary a couple million, maybe 3-4 million, and give him even more chance to earn with incentives to get him up into the mid-teens would be my educated guess where it goes.
Okay, Mike. Thanks again for coming on. We appreciate it. And listen,
Seriously, Mike,
just know, don't get off the internet. Don't listen to the tweeter and the kind of like it. But in my case, I know it sounds like I'm ripping you. I'm really ripping the team. I try and make that clear, but it's hard to differentiate the two. I understand it, but it's really I really mean the team.
I didn't think it was possible to make Mike Reiss mad, but boy, now I've seen it all on this show.
Yeah. I love it.
Oh, and I think we've done it twice now, 15 years.
12 years apart. Wes Welker.
Yeah, it's called reporting, Mike.
Oh, man.
Mike, I appreciate it. Thanks
Mike,
again.
be well. All right, talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, Mike Reiss, ESPN, joining us here on The Horn.